Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you work anywhere in the pharmaceutical industry or say you're managing a quality shop floor, you already know the golden rule, right? Just performing an activity simply isn't enough. You have to actually prove it. Over my years of investigating real deviations, I've seen firsthand that good intentions just do not equal good compliance. So today, we're going to break down the absolute foundation of pharma compliance. We'll look at exactly how we plan, how we execute, and crucially, how we prove it. Let's get right into it. I want to start off by throwing this stark question directly over to the shop floor and compliance teams tuning in. What really happens when process variation goes completely undocumented? Just think about that for a second. When a step is altered, even just slightly, but the paperwork looks absolutely perfect, what's the actual risk? Well, it's not just some minor paperwork error. It's a fundamental breach of trust in the product itself. And that brings us right to a core truth in our industry. Protocol defines the plan. Report proves the result. It sounds really simple, but it is absolute. Before we start unpacking the specific consequences of getting this wrong, we really need to anchor ourselves in why structured plans and verifiable evidence are so necessary. Because honestly, you just can't have one without the other. Okay, let's define exactly what we mean here, starting with the protocol. A protocol is simply your pre-approved plan. It lays out exactly what activity will be performed, how it's going to be done, and the exact acceptance criteria. Think about a validation protocol before you start a process validation, for example. It's basically your blueprint. Because without this pre-approved structure already in place, well, execution just becomes a matter of interpretation. And let me tell you, interpretation is the absolute enemy of consistency. Right. So now let's move over to the report. The report is your documented evidence of what was actually done, along with the results you obtained. And most crucially, it confirms whether or not those acceptance criteria were actually met. Let me just be completely blunt here. This is your definitive proof. It's quite literally the only thing an auditor actually cares about when checking if your system works the way it's supposed to. If it is not in the report, it did not happen. So what does it look like when we try to operate without this rigid structure? Well, it's pretty messy. You end up with a validation activity being done differently every single time. When operators are just left guessing on the floor, especially under tough, real-world conditions, steps get missed, timings get altered, and the whole procedure just becomes completely chaotic. The impact of that chaos is unavoidable. Process variation. When you don't clearly define the execution step by step, the only guaranteed result you're going to get is inconsistency. But on the flip side, proper planning completely avoids that confusion. When every single activity is clearly defined before execution even starts, it brings a sense of absolute order to the shop floor. Operators can systematically follow their standard operating procedures together. They know exactly what to do, exactly how to do it, and they know what success looks like. This is exactly how you eliminate that variation. Now, let's look at another breakdown we see a lot. The work is physically done, maybe it was even done perfectly, but there is absolutely no proof whether the results were acceptable. You've got an operator just staring at a blank clipboard. The data wasn't captured in the moment, so the report is incomplete. Without proper documentation of the outcome, all that physical work you just did is completely unverified. The consequence of having unrecorded results is severe. No control. Think about it. If you cannot definitively prove what just happened, you have completely lost control of your environment. However, when you have documented evidence, it immediately confirms criteria are met. When a detailed batch record is carefully reviewed and signed off, it becomes your ultimate proof of compliance. This is exactly what auditors expect to see from you. It's not just an exercise in filling out forms, it is capturing the exact reality of the shop floor and preserving it as indisputable evidence. Having personally investigated plenty of shop floor failures, I can tell you these are the real-life issues we see over and over again. A protocol gets written, but then it's just not followed during execution. Data in the report ends up missing or incomplete. Acceptance criteria weren't clearly defined from the start, which leaves the QA team guessing if something passed or failed. Or maybe worst of all, deviations happen on the floor, but they aren't recorded properly. Believe me, these aren't just hypothetical scenarios. These are the actual day-to-day traps that teams fall into. Which brings us to one of the absolute most dangerous practices we observe. Copy-paste reports without any actual data verification. We see stressed-out teams literally cloning data from previous runs, just assuming the equipment performed exactly the same way it did last time. without taking the time to verify the actual physical results. What they're really doing here is actively masking unrecorded deviations. And doing this inevitably leads to one very specific thing: an audit observation. When an inspector uncovers cloned data, it instantly ceases to be a simple human error and becomes a major, glaring regulatory finding. A proper reporting structure, though, guarantees something entirely different. It guarantees complete data integrity and traceability. When your quality team can confidently trace every single data point during a review, it means all the steps, the results, and the conclusions are properly recorded. Every single action taken becomes fully auditable and completely transparent. Let's look at one final chaotic scenario here: approving a process based entirely on guesswork, when failing equipment has absolutely no clear protocol attached to it and decisions are just being made on the fly. You are essentially trying to make critical batch decisions without a solid foundation of documented facts. You are just hoping it works rather than actually knowing it works. When guesswork replaces hard evidence, the result is crystal clear: compliance risk. This is the final, overarching threat to your entire facility when your documentation fails. But when you do follow the protocol and you fully complete the report, it shows that the process works exactly as intended. An approved validation tag isn't just a shiny sticker, it's the culmination of verifiable evidence. Validated reports are really the only way to confidently approve any process for production. It takes the guesswork entirely out of the equation. So the crucial takeaway really boils down to this summary. Proof of compliance means that every single activity is defined before execution. It means regulatory expectations are fully met because the auditors have the documentation they demand. Data integrity is properly recorded, and ultimately it enables confident decision-making across the board. We really have to stop viewing perfect documentation as some annoying regulatory chore. In reality, it is your facility's absolute greatest shield. I want to pivot here for just a moment. Achieving this high level of compliance isn't about policing the shop floor or catching people making mistakes. It's about supporting your pharma team. It takes a truly collaborative approach, a real partnership between quality assurance and the shop floor staff to actually make these procedures work in the real world. There are highly specific, very practical ways we can simplify all of this for the shop floor. This means providing real support for protocol and report compilation, so your operators aren't just starting from scratch every time. It means helping out with SOP preparation and correcting documentation issues before they turn into bad habits. And crucially, it requires ongoing, engaging training in good manufacturing practices, good documentation practices, and data integrity. This exact kind of collaboration is what guarantees long-term audit readiness. Which leaves us with this final thought to reflect on today. Take a really hard look at your daily operations and ask yourself, is your documentation an audit risk or is it your ultimate shield? Don't wait for an investigator to answer that question for you. Rethink your approach to SOPs today. And remember, if you ever need support getting your documentation right, don't hesitate to reach out and connect. Thanks for tuning in.